all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced to enter a long trade.
Howdy MJ friends. So today was a bit of a clear sentiment shift. Obviously everybody read Canadian and US MJ names, and it was really marked by the S&P 500 breaking that pattern of 7 days in a row with a higher low every single day, but seeing no follow through for the bears, and SPY closed extremely strong at 2019 highs at the high of the day, and to see that not reflected in the MJ space at all, and to know that the S&P 500 will see weekly consolidation at some point in the next month, and knowing that that's only going to negatively impact these names, which are already weaker than SPY, it is definitely having us look to the potential of this summer lull that we've been talking about. So it's now April, and another factor that I'm looking at is back in 2017, I can remember having a conversation with one of my buddies in the kitchen saying, no way is the crypto bull run going to top out right when it's time to enter Canadian MJ for the run up into legalization sales. And that's how it played out. It was perfect timing. And right now, we just had the cryptocurrency space change the weekly trend bullish for the first time in over a year after a long drawn out pullback. And now that we're seeing that, we're getting more and more signs that Canadian MJ is potentially going to consolidate through the summer. So obviously big news events can change anything, but where we stand right now, I'm definitely watching the sentiment in both spaces because high risk traders like myself are moving capital from one place to the other. And if we're seeing a long lull and dull action in the summer in Canadian MJ, then we're going to be looking for action elsewhere. So we have two clear, distinct setups heading into tomorrow. Oversold bounce plays is the commonality between US and Canadian MJ names. Canadian MJ names have oversold bounces that we're watching for after daily breaks of support. They're in daily downtrends. We have USMJ names approaching hourly oversold, coming off of all-time highs and in daily uptrends. So there's two scenarios. Number one, establish a game plan tomorrow. Are you going to play any oversold bounces? Number two, focus on just a couple names. Choose whether you're going to trade Canadian or MJ, or maybe watch one name of both. And then number three, establish a plan on how you would like to execute the oversold bounce play. So I'm going to go through the names here individually, and we're going to be watching for what the best setups are. And it's also a factor of capital. Am I going to be playing the USMJ names with less capital because the liquidity is not as good? Or do I want to play the Canadian MJ names knowing I can play with more capital confidently and try and get some bounce that way? So looking at CGC, we got the red flags multiple days in a row. And now we're following through a little bit for the bears. So we got the continuation of a higher low and higher high and no follow through. Upper wick, inside bar, bear break. So this was the scenario where I was using the 2-day time frame and saying it's a potential bear flag on a weak bounce attempt. And here we are fading back down towards the low 40 support, 40.56. So here on the daily time frame, looks like we did close a little bit above the low of the day. Hourly RSI right at oversold. If we see weakness tomorrow, and if we break 42.31, whether it's a gap down, I would love to see gap downs because that makes buying a little bit more convincing and comfortable. But if we break 42.31 tomorrow, hourly RSI, we're going to be watching for oversold. Support is 42.05, and then a lack of support until 40.56. So hourly oversold bounce on watch for CGC. The 4-hour RSI, if we break the low of today, will be in the upper 30s, and it would pretty much take a move down towards 40.56 to see 4-hour RSI oversold as well. We have to be cautious of weak short-term bounces cooling off RSI levels because that can always allow for another leg down. Again, just longer-term time frames, looking at CGC, if we break this low of 40.56 and we fade into the summer, it is a monthly equilibrium pattern. Our lower high is clearly set at 51.81, and if we do see weakness this summer, we're going to look for a couple months of pullback and for a higher low in the upper to mid $30 range to stay in this equilibrium. And then we would look for a break, perhaps Q4 2019 or Q1 2020. That's looking way out in advance. We're going to take it one day at a time as always. There's no need to try and predict what's going to happen in 6 months because the longer you look out, the more variables there are going to be, the harder it's going to be to determine what the most likely scenarios are. But we can very confidently say that if we break 40.56, we are in this monthly equilibrium pattern and looking for a higher low to then form somewhere above 25.26 support. So that's where we stand on CGC. Now Cron. Cron on the daily time frame has been giving us red flags all over the place. Spike in bear volume, bear break of 1788 support, and we're looking right down at 1724. After 1724, the next support level is 17 psychological and 1573. There is no support here because of how hard we ran up. We don't have a ton of support. So the hourly RSI here on Cron is going to be looking to oversold tomorrow if we get the gap down open. RSI was already oversold. This is one of those instances where RSI being oversold leads to a short-term bounce, but no follow-through. It's a bear flag. The RSI cooled off from 24 to 32, and then it's right back down to oversold again. So when we see these bounces that are not the V-shaped recoveries that we want with increasing bull volume, then we have to be cautious that it's just cooling off RSI levels for another leg down. And Cron certainly looks that way. 4-hour RSI on Cron will be oversold if we break 1724 tomorrow. So hourly and 4-hour RSI oversold. It's more beat up than CGC, but a lack of daily support means that RSI levels can get more overextended. Need to stop right there. If you are not used to playing oversold bounces, paper trade these oversold bounces and get good at them. If you do not have confidence, comfortability, and experience trading oversold bounces, it's a great way to lose money playing counter the trend. So practice if you are new to this, or play with very small amounts to try and get a feel for things. So we're looking for weakness tomorrow on Cron. ACB, odds of that 4-hour inside bar, or I should say the 4-hour inverse head and shoulders pattern, are less likely. Pre-market, we rejected from resistance by 4 pennies, and then we consolidated today. So I'm erasing that pattern from my mind, and I'm zooming in a little bit and just looking at this range. Low, high, higher low, lower high, and we're looking for a higher low compared to 879. Certainly a different setup as the 4-hour RSI is nowhere near oversold. The hourly RSI, if we were to drop down to that key 879 support tomorrow, first thing, that hourly RSI will be approaching oversold, but I like the 4-hour equilibrium view here as we look for a tightening range. APHA, out of the major Canadian MJ names, easily holding on the best, and that is due likely to earnings approaching. So we have a tightening range here as well on the 4-hour, but it's a bit more comfortable. So I like it better with extended hours off, just with 1017 resistance, the low of 963, lower high of 1014, and we're looking for a higher low compared to 963, and for this range to continue to tighten on the 4-hour time frame. So 4-hour ranges on APHA and ACB, hourly oversold bounces on CGC and Cron on watch. Lack of support on those names mean they can get overextended. And now we're going to look at USMJ names in a second here, which are in daily uptrends looking for hourly oversold bounces, which is a completely different scenario and in general is more forgiving to the bulls when in an uptrend already. So TLRY, as soon as I saw CGC and Cron break their daily support levels, I put the brakes on scaling into TLRY in a big way. And that's because if you get familiar with this space, the way that the Canadian MJ names started to trade today, you can almost get a feel and say, okay, it's very likely we're going to see a weak midday bounce, close weak, and get a flush to hourly oversold conditions. So TLRY is already well on its way to oversold on all time frames, and it's the kind of scenario now where TLRY's bounce is likely going to be dictated on as to when CGC and Cron get their bounce going. The sector likes to bounce in unison as we see correlation, but we're going to be coming from a much more beat up area on TLRY. So I did day traded today just for a quick flip, very small gain, just looking to feel around a bit to see if we were getting any kind of bounce follow through. But as soon as I saw weak bounces, I bailed for tiny profit. I have an initial small starter position in the low 59s, but I'm looking to add a good bit more once I'm comfortable, and I'd love to see a gap down open tomorrow. But we're at RSI levels where historically we're in uncharted territory. The most oversold daily RSI ever, down at 22. The 4-hour RSI is down at 20. The hourly RSI cooled off a little bit today, but it's still down in the low 20s. So if we break the low of today, 56.22, tomorrow, I will be looking to play a TLRY oversold bounce, and I will probably play a USMJ oversold bounce as well. But the daily support is 55.55. Again, very little support, which is why RSI is getting extended. And after that, it's 49.50. So we do have a support level to be watching. We gap down open today. And if we gap down open tomorrow, we'll be watching for some kind of volume climax to indicate that the short-term bounce is underway. Keeping in mind that on this short-term bounce, we're just going to be looking for RSI levels to cool off and for, ideally a 10% bounce. Let's say we drop down to 55 tomorrow. 10% bounce would be 60.50 from there, which would just be a little quick lower high, which we could certainly see that kind of a size of a bounce being a 10% bounce if we drop down to lower lows. Bottom line is I'm being very patient and cautious, and I pumped the brakes big time when I saw what the sector was doing today and saw that SPY was not very weak, but the sector was very weak. And I will be interested in TLRY, and I will look to add, again, my initial starter position is very small, so I would look to add significantly more capital once I am comfortable with where I see CGC and Cron setting up. So essentially what I see on CGC and Cron is going to help dictate what I do on TLRY. And that's the same thing with cryptocurrency. I just did that today with Bitcoin being the lead indicator for the other altcoins that trade based off of it. So Cron and CGC will be important for the TLRY bounce. And on TLRY, anything on the hourly under 57.39 is just a lower high. And again, the setup tomorrow morning is going to dictate a lot as well. If we don't see TLRY or these names gap down open, there's the potential that TLRY could hold 56.22 and then change this hourly trend. It's not a likely scenario, but it is a possibility. So that pre-market setup is very important. You can establish your game plan the night before, but you want to make sure you check in pre-market and see where those setups are. OGI, so this is a scenario where it's similar to USMJ names, in the sense that we're looking at no red flags on bear volume, and we're looking at a daily high or low above 864. Anything above that keeps the daily uptrend intact. We're coming off the all-time high, and the hourly RSI is not that oversold. So if we drop down and break 946 tomorrow, we know to back off because we have not set that high or low yet, but we're not in hourly oversold conditions where other names are. If the bulls can hold 946 and break 963, that's our hourly trend change that tells us the daily high or low has been established. So worth keeping an eye out for a daily high or low on OGI in a much better point than most Canadian MJ names, as it still has the uptrend. TRST is a potential bear flag. Declining volume the last couple days, certainly a weak bounce. If tomorrow we break 1018, the low of today, the odds that it's a daily bear flag will increase. If tomorrow we hold 1018 and break 1041, the odds that it's a bear flag will decrease. But at this point, the bulls are not proving anything to us, and we have to remain skeptical until they start to shift momentum. Hexo is close to a bear break of this equilibrium pattern. High, low, lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low. We did set a quick lower high at 891 now, and we're looking right back down to 862 support. If 862 breaks, we're looking at 835 as the next level, and watch for a volume spike. Look at the volume the last 5 days, just flat. We'll see a volume spike when it is a clear break of this range and when it's a convincing break of this range, and we'll likely see more than 2.5 million shares traded when that is the case, which is double what we've been seeing recently. So keep an eye on that, out on that volume, but anticipating that we're probably going to see some weakness follow through for Canadian MJ into tomorrow, the odds of a bear break are higher than the odds of a bull break for Hexo. VFF, the daily equilibrium is playing out as we anticipated, patiently waiting for the higher low everyday pattern to break, which it did today. So our lower high is set at 2249, and now we're looking for the higher low compared to 1676. Here's another one where the hourly RSI is going to be oversold if we see a weaker start tomorrow, and it's an hourly oversold play off of 1676 support, anticipating that level will hold to give us at least an hourly oversold bounce to remain in this tightening pattern, at least temporarily. So oversold bounce play on the hourly based off of 1676 support, keeping an eye out for a quick flush tomorrow morning and the potential for an hourly oversold bounce to get going, as the hourly oversold bounces in the past have certainly gone well for VFF. NBEV, huge day today. And honestly, I assumed that this news was that their CBD products were getting into Walmart, and I'm told that's not the case, that it is their yerba mate, which is, I don't know if people are confused or what. I guess anybody that does anything with Walmart gets a big bump. That's a huge move. Our monthly high or low is now established. So high, low, lower high. Here's our higher low at 472. Nice news bump to give us that. And anything under 779 is a lower high, and we're certainly going to be very overextended if we head to that level anytime soon. So we would look for a lower high compared to that, but we did get a real nice close on obviously huge volume and a close at the high of the day. So bulls might not be done for now. Hourly support is all the way down at 555, and double top at 699 or at 669. Actually, it looks like, well, we have to break that level first thing tomorrow anyways, and then we're looking to 7 psychological. This is the kind of play. I did not make this entry. Busy middle of the day, went out to do some errands and missed this play, but look at the lower high and lower low on the 5-minute time frame. The lower high pattern breaks at 583, and then we back test 583 and hold it as support. We actually broke it by a penny or two, but look at the declining bear volume. So essentially we have a 15-minute higher low looking to form after the morning strength. And we got it when the 5-minute trend changed that indicated that consolidation was done for now. Then we consolidated on no bear volume, back tested previous resistance, now support, held it, and then saw a huge follow through and take off in a big way. So whether you're entering on a bull break of 583 or entering on a bull break of the new high of the day 591, very nice follow through for the bulls, and congrats to those that got into that trade. We'll see if we get continuation into tomorrow. So now we're going to the USMJ names looking at bounces. So CURA is on day number 3 of pullback, no red flags on bear volume, coming off the all-time high. Anything above 1107 is a daily high or low, so we're anticipating keeping that daily uptrend. And the hourly RSI, well, that end of the day bounce ruined things a bit. But if we break 1251 first thing tomorrow, that hourly RSI is going to be approaching oversold as we approach the low $12 range. So hourly oversold bounce on watch for CURA to be looking for a daily higher low. When you're playing oversold bounces, when I'm playing oversold bounces that are in a downtrend, I lock in my profit quickly. I scale out. I say, great, give me my money, see you later. If I am looking to scale into an hourly oversold bounce on an uptrend, there's 2 different ways to do it. You can look for that short-term bounce and lock in your gains and be done with it, or you can set your stop loss at break even and hope that that's our daily higher low looking for continuation. So for the USMJ names, that's a possibility. The size of the pullback at this point, I would be surprised if we saw a higher low straight to continuation. I believe a higher low and then tightening range would be more likely, but we'll take it one day at a time as always. And the hourly oversold bounces are on watch. Look at the 12-period exponential support. Last higher low bounced just above it. Today's low bounced just above it. These are a good visual guide. They're not a concrete level that the price bounces off of, but it's a good visual guide. And if we see hourly oversold conditions as we approach that visual guide of support, that's when we look for a bit more confidence in our trades. GTII, bear volume spike, clearly topping out with the inside bar bear break. We're coming off of the high of the bull move here as well, and anything above 1825 is a higher low. So we're not anticipating to lose the daily uptrend on this pullback. Hourly RSI is oversold. If we start tomorrow with a $20 flush, we're going to look for an hourly oversold bounce to try and play out. Keeping in mind that with the size of the pullback at this point, 10%, the odds of a higher low and continuation are a lot less likely than a higher low into a lower high. CWeb already started its bounce. Look at the 12-period exponential support. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Hourly RSI didn't get quite to oversold. This bounce is much more developed than other names that we've looked at. So the odds of dropping to hourly oversold and lower lows are less likely. If we can hold 2803 and break the hourly lower highs, our daily higher low is established, and the bulls will be looking back to the high. So this is essentially a glimpse into the future of what the bulls want to see on names like CURA. We want to see a bullish candlestick forming the daily higher low and the hourly trend change. So a little bit of a glimpse into the future as the bounce is already playing out, and it's not the same setup as everybody else as we head into tomorrow. So if you're looking to play CWeb, you have to adjust for that fact. The odds that CWeb can hold the low of today are a lot more likely than the odds of CURA, who closed weak, or any of the other majority of the Canadian MJ or MJ names in general that we just looked at. OH, coming off the all-time high, declining bear volume, no red flags, looking for a daily uptrend to maintain. 1105 is that support. Daily exponential support going to be tested tomorrow after holding multiple times on the way up. Hourly RSI approaching oversold. If we drop down into the mid $11 range tomorrow, hourly RSI will be oversold, and it'll be a bounce play based off of 1105 support. CL, a little bit more bear volume worth noting. We are at the 12-period exponential support. Anything above 1409 is a daily higher low, and the hourly RSI is just above oversold. If we break the low of today, first thing tomorrow morning, hourly RSI will be oversold, and we'll look for a bounce play, looking to hold 1409 support to maintain the daily uptrend. So there's a whole bunch of other names out there, of course, which we're not covering after 30 tickers over the weekend, over 30 tickers over the weekend. Labs saw a nice continuation to start the morning. We have a lot of equilibriums on the longer term time frames playing out. MRMD is one, KHRN, CVSI. All these names have daily or weekly tightening ranges. They're different setups than these oversold bounces. So Canadian MJ, loss of daily uptrends for a lot of names. Let's just say CGC and Cron. We can CGC, Cron, TLRY, oversold bounce play watch into tomorrow. APH, A, and ACB, 4-hour equilibrium tightening range watch. USMJ names like OH, CL, CURA, and GTII, we're looking for oversold bounces to give us daily higher lows and maintain the daily uptrend. And then a bunch of names that we're not going to cover are in tightening ranges that we're keeping an eye on for the longer term patterns. But again, bottom line to drive home the main point is establish a game plan. Establish your long-term game plan. Are you going to hold through summer consolidation? It's fine if you're going to. Are you going to potentially look to reload cheaper? Are you going to look to place stop losses to protect some profits? Are you going to look to shift to USMJ? Just establish a game plan. Are you going to play oversold short-term bounces? Are you going to practice playing oversold short-term bounces? We'll see how it all plays out into tomorrow. I have my focus on TLRY due to extreme RSI levels, and my eye will be on probably CURA on the US side of things. TRUL also had some nice news. It had a solid bull day, so it's not in the same category of looking for a daily higher low to form at this point. So that's that. Hope you're well. Hope you had a good day. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of action tomorrow. And again, S&P 500 has not consolidated. It's at the high of 2019. And if Canadian MJ names are seeing weakness with the S&P 500, 1.5% from the all-time high, what's going to happen if we see 2 red weeks in a row on the S&P 500? Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time. So for this week, we're going to wrap it up with some more pictures and adventure time, but then we're going to get back to some real-life stuff. I'm going to be moving into a short-term place while I continue scouting to buy a mini farm, but going to be growing a whole bunch of stuff, so I'll record some stuff about growing stuff and the nice springtime stuff. So here we got Florida. If you're going to camp in Florida, do it in the winter or the early spring or the late fall. This trip was in the winter and it was great. They got boardwalks going through the swamp area. It's a different world. It's like Jurassic Park. But if you do it in the summer, it was the worst experience I've ever had camping. I had to cut the trip early and go home with my tail between my legs because literally you get to where you're going, you hike around a bit, you're dripping sweat, the mosquitoes are unbearable the entire time. Anywhere in the shade is all mosquitoes. I would literally have to crawl into my tent at about 3 p.m., naked, dripping sweat, and you could hear the audible buzz of the mosquitoes around the mesh, and I could put my hand to the mesh and literally see a swarm come to where my hand was. So literally you're imprisoned, and there's no way to stay cool. It was just miserable. So, swampy trees, nice big ferns, and you really get to appreciate how well life is at growing, especially when it's in very wet, very hot conditions with the hanging moss everywhere. And all of these trees' branches have just little micro environments all throughout them of tons of stuff growing on them. Those clouds definitely soaked me and let me know that my tent was no longer waterproof. Had that little note on my Facebook post for this picture. But about what was I going to say? I don't know. Something. Great place to camp. Big trees, lots of green. Just do it in the winter. That's a really cool picture. And all that is just moss and grass and plants growing. The leaves just decay and create little soil on top of the branches, and life goes wild. I was going to say, when you're a farmer, you really get to appreciate how good life is at growing as well. With weeds and what these plants can do, you can uproot a weed and toss it to the side, and its roots are going to go right back into the ground, and it's going to stay alive. And it's just, life is pretty incredible with how well it can adapt and survive. So I know that when humans are long gone, life will continue to thrive on Earth. Life's not going anywhere. Humans probably will, but that's a ways away. So I appreciate you watching, and I think I go to Costa Rica next. I forget the last time I went over Costa Rica. I think it was fairly recent. We'll see. I'll dig something else up to talk about, and I hope you have a good day.